Hi everyone, welcome back to Stag Voiceover. My name is Neil Glasgow. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over a demonstration of noise gates and dynamic split in Reaper. Now, as you might be able to hear, my voice doesn't sound that great. It is ungodly early right now. I have drank 3 coffees. I'm very dehydrated, my mouth is very clicky, and I'm doing this because what I'm about to show you on the recording I've done, I've purposely made it quite bad in terms of mouth noise, etc., to demonstrate what a noise gate can do, the frequencies that we need to try and address, but more importantly, what dynamic split can do and how you can monitor things on a more individual level. Now, before I get into any of this, a couple of caveats. Noise gates are a wonderful thing, but they are not a fix for this, okay? You need to be properly hydrated. You need to have proper mouth technique to make sure that pops and clicks and all that sort of stuff don't get through. Noise gates and dynamic split can support, but they are not a whitewash for poor voiceover technique, essentially. It's very early. I'm trying to get my words. So please bear that in mind. This is not to say, look, follow these steps and you can just get away with all this stuff. You really do need to train yourself, and you need to make sure that you follow the room tone step if you're going to use particularly dynamic splits, but also noise gates. And the reason behind that is, right now, if I stop talking, you're going to hear room tone. If I use a noise gate and have it at the wrong settings, even the right settings sometimes, what you're going to hear is talky, 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 and then absolute silence. And then when I talk again, you're also going to hear the room tone, a background test, whatever it might be. Whatever is in your booth when you talk is going into the mic. And when you don't talk and your noise gate closes, if you remember from the last video, nothing is getting through. And that can become an even bigger distraction, okay? So when I talk you through how to do this, please be careful on how you use noise gates and dynamic splits. Right, disclaimer done. And with all of that in mind, let's get into it. Hey everyone, right, just so you know, in case I get a little bit rambly in this is the 6th time I've recorded this video because it just wasn't working and I couldn't figure it out, but I think I have now. So, with that little moan out the way, let's get into it. What I've done is I've recorded an audition that I did this morning. I've made this really quite messy. There are pops and clicks here, some pops there, some errant breaths, you've got some distortions there, some errant blasts down here, and pops and clicks. It's a mess. I did this with a very dry mouth, wet lips, all sorts of stuff. All the things that you shouldn't do, but I'm doing it to give you an example, really, of what a noise gate can do for you, and more importantly, what dynamic split can do for you. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of noise gate, how it works, and some of the issues that you can find with it. And then I'll go into dynamic split and why I personally feel it works a little bit better. Now, I am recording this, my gains are set to between -18 and -12, which you can see over here. And if you're ever wondering what your gains are actually set at, all you need to do is click up here and talk, and it will give you a good judge of what it is. So if I need to get loud, it'll peak about, -6. That gives me loads and loads of headroom, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this for you now. And if you're wearing headphones, I apologise. I've purposely made some wet noises on here. But this is really going to help demonstrate. And if you're not listening to this on headphones, turn your volume up or go and get some headphones. This is Dennis. No, not that guy down here. This guy. Dennis went through his safety training and is thinking about all the hazards in his new work area. And this is Thomas. He's been working in steel production for over 32 years and will be showing Dennis his new work area today. Hey, Dennis, quit daydreaming. Let's get going. Okay, so in terms of the pops and clicks and stuff, that's something that we're going to try and address using the noise gate. And I'll show you how it can work and, yeah, where you need to be very careful of it. So what you first want to do is turn on your FX up here. Just make sure you've got that window up. And then in your FX filter, you want to type in gate. And it's regate is what you're after, okay? So regate. And what you're going to find here is this is your threshold, right? This is everything going into the DAW. And as we go along and I mess with this, you're going to hear my voice break up, okay? And I'll adjust that, but if it starts going very patchy, you'll see how dangerous a noise gate can get. But at the minute, this is at negative infinity, which is essentially saying anything can get through. My DAW goes to negative 60, which is practically inaudible, okay? So if I play this segment now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start messing about with this, and I'm going to start raising the volume on it as the threshold. And what you want to try and do is get the threshold to dip just below where this dips when I stop talking. Because if it's just below, it means it captures everything that comes in above it. Anything above this line, if this filter is up there, isn't going to get in. So I'll demonstrate. This is Dennis. No, not that guy down here. This guy. Dennis went through his training thinking about all the hazards in his work area. So, see how that's happening? Sorry. You see how that's happening there? If I had that too high, nothing's getting through. So I need to really bring that down. This is Dennis. No, not that guy down here. This guy. Dennis went through his safety training and is thinking about all the hazards in his new work area. And this is Thomas. He's been working in steel production. Okay, so that's kind of okay. Negative 30, I mean, my voice tends to go anywhere between, negative 30, negative 35, something along those lines, depends on what I'm recording. So, I know that most of the audio bits there are going to fall within this threshold. I'll just lower this down just to make sure that I don't clip anything. So what we're going to look at here, so I know that this is a breath, okay? And I'm just going to demonstrate where the breath falls on this scale, right? So we're getting it about there, aren't we? So it doesn't take much, but that gets rid of it. And that's a really good example that you can hear right now, okay? So when you have a noise gate on, and depends on what your booth setup's like, but if you've got a fan noise, if you've got any room tone or anything that's there, when you use a noise gate and you have it on maybe a little bit too strong, if we imagine that this breath is the room tone. So if I start playing that, you're going to start hearing that breath come through only when I speak. So when your audio goes out and people can hear that, that's what they're going to start listening to. It's all those silent bits that are there. And that's where a noise gate can really set you afoul. So if I just measure this for you, okay, we'll keep it there, right? Now, let's assume that that's what you lock it in at. But we've got this big click over here. Now, let's see if we can hear this click based on where our noise gate is. Yep, see, we can still hear it. We need to lose a whole lot of headroom for that to get for us to get rid of that. But if we brought that up to negative 27, that breath is going to get through. So this is why you can't just use a noise gate to get rid of, poor hydration, poor technique, all that sort of stuff that you really do need to train yourself with, okay? So I'm going to just briefly go over this stuff. I'm not going to show you any of the settings on it. Pre-open, as an example, if this is where my audio comes in, pre-open basically says, if I put this at 100 milliseconds, it's saying 100 milliseconds before I hit this point here, you can open the door and let all the sound in. So potentially it's going to let all that mess in there, okay? Your attack is everything that's going through. Your hold is how long you're telling it to hold that door open before that door automatically swings shut. And that's what your release is. So if you say, hold it for, again, maybe like another 100 milliseconds on here. After this point, if you don't hear anything for 100 milliseconds, let go of that door. And your release is going to be how long it takes for that door to close. So if you've got 100 there and 100 there, you've got 200 milliseconds before it should hear anything for that door to be completely closed. If it doesn't, it starts this whole process up again, and yeah, everything's going to get through. So just, if you're going to use it, dial it in increments, and I would do it in increments of like 5 milliseconds, okay? Right, I'm going to stop showing you noise gate because I think dynamic split is a better tool to use. So let me just get rid of this. And we'll go back here. Now, dynamic split on Reaper is just hitting D, okay? Now, because I've already had a look at some of this stuff, I'm going to put this all back to factory settings. Now, don't copy anything you've seen. For the love of Jeebus and Slime Jesus and all sorts of other stuff, just don't copy it. What I'm going to show you is what you really want to start keying in and how you're going to key it in, okay? And bear in mind, this is very particular to my voice, but this is how you're going to put it in. So I tend to open your noise gates and close your noise gates. And this is where your transients are going to be. This is where your splits are going to be. Now, this is essentially telling me I have one split. Now, where's that one split? It's here. And the reason that's there is I've said there's 20 milliseconds here. You could have that as 5 if you wanted to, and it would adjust that. If you say nothing within the first 20 milliseconds, if you don't hear anything with this threshold here, then you create a split. And this minimum slice length is the back end of it. So if you don't hear anything for 20 seconds at this, then you can create a split. Now bear in mind, these are down here, and everything on this recording is going to be a little bit louder than that, okay? So, what we're trying to look at is getting the right threshold dialed in. So if I take this to, let's say I take that to 39 dB, okay? That's still letting everything in. So if we take it down to 35, right, we've lost more here, right? And we've started to develop a split here. So we'll probably take that a little bit further down. Let's take that to negative 30. Right, so we've started to get more and more splits. So we've lost everything that's here because there's nothing there. There's practically nothing here, but we're still picking up the back end of that little pop. There's enough of a gap here that it's creating those spaces. But the problem is we've got some stuff happening at the front, which is essentially your threshold. Your threshold is everything before a sound, and your hysteresis is going to be everything after a sound. And we're saying that everything after the sound at the minute, under negative 48 decibels, you can let through, which is not really what we want to do. So even if we took this to a parity level at about 30, that creates a whole lot of more space for us. And that's really what you're trying to get into it, but this is where, again, you have to be a bit careful. So we've still got this click here, we've still got a breath here, and we've still got a breath here. Now, we might want to start getting rid of those. It really depends on what your recording's going to sound like. So I'd maybe take that down, let's go another 10 dB and see what happens. So we've lost that breath there, that's good. We're starting to lose that breath here, and we've still got this quite pronounced pop here. So again, we'll adjust that down. I mean, I'll go down to about 11. Right, we're losing that breath, we've lost that breath. So we've still got this little pop and click here. So let's just see if we can adjust it from this side. So let's just take that down. There we are. We've just lost half a decibel there, and I'm quite happy with that. And nothing looks too dodgy, really. I mean, we've lost a breath there, we've lost our little breath there. So let's just see how that sounds. So when you hit split, this is what you're going to see. So these red markers are essentially your fades, your transients, and you want them to be about 5 milliseconds. And that's essentially where it's dipping or raising the volume between the cuts. So it's not as noticeable, essentially. So let's go back and listen and see if we've got anything here that really just gives us pause for thought. This is Dennis. No, not that guy down here. This guy. Dennis went through his safety training and is thinking about all the hazards in his new work area. And this is Thomas. He's been working in steel production for over 32 years and will be showing Dennis his new work area today. Hey, Dennis, quit daydreaming. Let's get going. Okay, so apart from, I think I can hear probably a little click that's in here somewhere that I could go in and edit out, and I could hear a bit of a pop here from maybe where I hit the mic a bit too hard. But assuming that I'm happy with what comes out, this is kind of the genius element of dynamic split. So let's assume, for the argument's sake of this video, I'm happy with that. All I need to do now is take my room tone, which I have as a preloaded file on all my recordings when I start, and all I do is elongate it for the whole section. I move it up here, Control A to highlight everything, and Control G. And that glues everything together. And what that does is it takes away all those negative spaces. It makes it not digitally dead. So when the transients happen, they're not as noticeable. And what you don't get is that room tone missing elements for when you talk. The room tone that's here is exactly the same as the room tone that's throughout this entire bit of recording, because I've recorded it separately to any edits that I've done. So please make sure that you do that if you're going to use dynamic split. But assuming that my recording is absolutely fine, all I would do for any of the auditions I do, and this is how I can get through them as quickly as I do, I've got my settings there. I hit dynamic split. Let's say I've saved this, which you can go into presets and save. You've got that saved there. Hit that button, hit split, roll that along, up, glue, done. You know, I tend to normalize to maybe -3, something along those lines. And that's it. I can render that and I can send that off. It really doesn't take that much time to do, especially when you're just doing auditions. This is how you can get through them really, really quickly. Do a good performance, do your version of whatever performance that you need to do. But your editing, we've eliminated breaths, we've eliminated pops and clicks. But believe me when I say that noise gates, dynamic splits, all this stuff is no substitute for proper training, proper hydration. Don't be, poppy and clicky when you do this. Because I've got a click in here somewhere and I've got a pop in there somewhere, if I did want to use this file, I'd have to go in there and find those pops and clicks. That takes more time. There it is, found it. That's where it's really going to take a little bit more time to do, and I know that I can identify that really quickly. I know if I go into there, my pop is going to be around here somewhere, because my pops really dip down. I think there's maybe another one about here as well, but I've been doing this long enough that I can identify another one. When you know what you're doing, it makes life a lot easier, but when you're first starting out, make life as easy on yourself as you possibly can. And that's it. That's noise gate and dynamic split, particularly within Reaper. If you've got any questions about that, drop them in the comments. Head over to Voiceover Advice on Reddit, and you can contribute there for any hints and tips that you have that people might really get a benefit out of. And remember, you can absolutely be a voiceover artist. I'll see you in the next video.